everyone, we are going to talk a little bit about soft structure carriers today and give a couple of tips and tricks for getting a nice good fit with your buckle carriers. So some of the things that I have found that a lot of people have a lot of problems with is making sure that the baby is popped down really nicely into the seat of the soft structure carrier, because if the baby's not popped down into the seat very well, then what you're going to end up with is kind of gravity working against you, where the baby is going to be kind of pulling away from your body. You're not going to be able to cinch the shoulder straps down properly, and the panel height is also going to become a problem, because if the baby's not popped down into that seat, then the panel is going to get pulled down lower onto their back, not providing adequate support. So one of the other potential problems with that is that the baby ends up sitting on the waistband itself. So when I hold up my soft structure carrier, you can kind of tell, I'm holding my baby too, where there is this little pooch that comes out from the back of the soft structure carrier right above the waistband, and that's the seat that you actually want the baby to be sitting in. You don't want them to be putting the pressure on the waistband itself. So a lot of times if you pull out your soft structure carrier and you look and you see that this waistband has kind of a permanent creasing, then that'll give you the indication that your baby hasn't consistently been sitting in the actual fabric of the seat, but in on the waistband itself. So to start off with, I'm going to sit baby down for just a minute, and we're going to talk about the typical placement of your soft structure waistband. So I'm wearing kind of tight clothing at the moment, so you can kind of see you have your natural curve of your waist. That's where a lot of mate ties will usually sit, just kind of tie onto that natural waist. Or if you have an unstructured waistband, like in a connector, an action baby carrier, things like that, then a lot of times they will sit more on that kind of natural curving and natural waist. With a typical, very patterned, structured, soft structured carrier waistband, where that's going to sit is where that, what they call like the iliac crest. So you're going to find the bones in your hips basically, which sit about right here on me. That's what you're going to kind of try to find and feel for, and that is where your padding of your soft structure carrier is going to sit. So I am going to go ahead, put it on, and I might start it off just a little bit high and loose just to sort of show. So I'm going to loosen out my waistband webbing, come up a little closer where you can see, and I'm going to reach around behind. If your soft structure has this elastic waistband, make sure your buckle always goes through the waistband there. That's a safety feature. For some chance if your buckle were to come undone or break, then the elastic band will actually hold it in place so your baby can't fall. So always make sure that you utilize that. So you can hear the pop. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to hold my waistband on one side, and I'm going to pull across where it goes across this other piece of webbing to keep it straight, to make it nice and tight. So from there, I am going to lift up this just to show where it is sitting on my body. You want to make sure that there's not a lot of gapping. So if there's gapping, you might want to tuck down just a teeny bit more and then tighten up your waistband just a little bit as well, because you want it to fit fairly snug. So you can see where it's now sitting on my body, and the waistband is parallel. So it's going parallel to the floor and it's straight across, instead of, a lot of times what we'll see is this portion being angled down. So you can see if I pull that down, how that's going to angle this portion up and it's going to go down on a curve. That's going to cause your baby to sit onto the waistband and not in the actual fabric of the carrier itself. Let me tuck this in so you can see it a little bit better. And it's also going to end up putting too much strain and pressure on your back. So make sure that it's just all the way flat across your back and going parallel to the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down. Now, another common tip that a lot of people have problems with, we'll talk about in a minute, is the connector clip in the back and how to reach that connector clip. So I'm going to do it the regular way the first time, But then after that, I'll show you sort of some tips and tricks to get that connector clip. So I always like to start with things loosened out a little bit, and that just makes it a little bit easier to get the perfect fit each time that you put it on. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen out my straps. And then we're going to pick up baby, and I have a 1.5-year-old at the moment. I'm going to pick her up, and I'm going to go ahead and put her in this in positioning. You can see where I am kind of trying to create that seat on the soft structure itself without putting her on the actual waistband. So when you put them up first, try to hold them just a little bit above the waistband itself, and then you're going to pull the fabric up, and you can see how now she's sitting in the fabric itself and not on that waistband. So from there, I'm going to thread my shoulder straps on. So just basically like putting on a reverse backpack at this point. And then I'm going to reach behind me, and I'm going to go ahead and clip this connector clip. And from here, what I'm going to do first, I always take one hand and I'm going to feed it between the baby and the carrier. And basically what I'm going to do without putting it in between is I'm just going to gently lift with my hand on her bottom while feeding the other hand through on the other side as well, and just spread that fabric to make sure that she's actually sitting in the waistband. And you'll see right now I've got some bunching underneath her, and it's going to end up pulling that fabric a little bit up and closer. So I'm going to gently go in between. I'm going to lift her with one hand, and I'm going to take this other hand and feed it through while gently pulling and spreading that fabric up and around and across her back. So now I don't have that bunching. If I get really close, you can see how she's sitting in the fabric and not on that waistband. So now that I've got this part done, I'm then going to tighten up my shoulder straps. And you're going to just do a little bit of pull out and down. You want to try to keep them going straight across with each other. So find this piece and pull it the same direction. If you're finding that you have some uncomfortableness in one shoulder or the other, it might be that you have one side tighter than the other. So one way to sort of find if you have that, kind of like when they're getting your hair cut, just take both of these pieces out and do a little bit of measuring and make sure that they're at about the same equal length out. So I just take those two pieces, pull them out, and make sure that they're right about the same. And that should help you if by any chance you're having any pain pulling on one shoulder or the other. Now for your connector clip, you're going to want it sort of in the lower middle top of your back. So you can see about where mine is placed. You don't need it super tight. So if I were to pull it super tight, it's going to cause some pinching. I'm going to pull it. So now you can see how it's taking these shoulder straps and it's pulling them in, and you can see the curving of how tightly that they're pulled in. And that's also going to cause you quite a bit of pain because of the way that it's going to be pulling those shoulder straps in and on your neck instead of just causing them to lightly rest on your shoulders. So I'm going to undo that real quick. And you really don't need a lot of tension in the connector clip. Really all it's there to do is to keep the shoulder straps from sliding off. So that's really honestly its only purpose, is to keep those shoulder straps in a fairly nice position itself. So this is just about the proper fit for a typical soft structure carrier. I'll show you a trick real quick for the connector clip if you have a lot of problems with getting that on or being able to reach back behind you. Oh, there's your cracker. There's your cracker. So if you have problems getting the connector clip clipped, I'm going to loosen everything back out again. And one thing that you can do is to go ahead and clip your connector clip. So I'm going to go ahead, put it together, clip it. And I'm going to put this, as it's already loosened, up onto my shoulders. So I fit it onto my shoulders. I'm gonna go over my head and just let it sit. And then I'm going to pick up baby. I'm going to put her up over one shoulder. I'm going to reach in through, and I'm just going to feed her into the carrier itself. And lower her down and just pop her into the panel. And again, I'm going to do my little seat trick to make sure that she's lifted, and then up into that seat properly. And then from there, I'm going to do my straighten up. Alright, and yes, you can, go on. And there we go. So, some simple front carry tips and tricks to make sure your soft structure carrier is nice and comfortable. Now remember, these are sort of general tips and tricks you might find if you have a longer torso, shorter torso, or different body sizing. Then obviously you might wear your soft structure slightly differently, but in general this is how they are designed and how most people find them comfortable. So hopefully that will help you out, and if you need any additional troubleshooting, feel free to let us know.